Hey, welcome in everybody. Choppadong here with a quick NHL tutorial in terms of building a process. And I want to show you sort of one way to go about it. If you just caught my last video, it was a 5-minute video on what I do to pick NBA players, telling you I'm not an NBA guy. I'm more of a hockey guy, baseball guy, football guy, whatever. I'm not really an NBA guy, so I rely on the experts at DFS Army to do the heavy lifting for me when it comes to these things. If you're not a hockey guy or you're just wanting to learn maybe the ins and outs of hockey, then you're going to need to rely on these experts as well, and we have them in place in the hockey room too. So here's what I would do. Through the past couple of days, one of our cash experts, Anthony P., has been kind of going through trying to articulate his process to people that are asking. And he's a very, very good cash player. And I'm not going to quite put him in the stratosphere with Jerry Rice, Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, guys like that. But what I am going to say is that I've noticed that even though some of those tips, if you decipher through them, some of those tips are very, very good. It's very clear that Anthony has a vision, an ability to kind of see a slate play out that numbers don't tell you. It's from intimate knowledge of the game, as well as massaging numbers, what the numbers might be telling you, what they're pointing to, things like that. And those are things you can't really quantify, and that really frustrates daily fantasy players because everybody thinks that there's some magic formula, some numbers, black and white push button formula. There isn't. It doesn't exist. But we have the coaches in place to teach you how to get better at finding these things and to share with you their knowledge about what it is that they look for and how they see things. And Michael Jordan wasn't a good coach. And, Jerry Rice probably wouldn't be a good coach. And Wayne Gretzky tried and wasn't a good coach. It's very hard to, when you have that kind of that innate ability to kind of just see where the basketball is going to go or see where the puck is going to go. And just when people say, well, why are you upset at me? Well, because you didn't go to the puck. And how did you know the puck was going to be over there? I just knew. What do you mean? You didn't know? What's wrong with you? Sometimes it feels a little bit like that when we're getting coaching inside Daily Fantasy Sports. When you talk to a coach and he goes, what do you mean? You just do this. And you're like, well, explain that. And he's like, well, I really can't. You can't see that? Why can't you see that? The very first, not to get too far off the track, but the very first calculus class I had in college was a professor that was so smart. He was teaching Math 550 classes, and he was so smart. It was impossible for him to dumb himself down enough to teach us calculus. I mean, that blew my mind. It was one of my first experiences with, not everybody can teach. And those that can are especially revered because they know both the game, can play it, at an okay level. They don't have to be experts at playing the game, but they can communicate to you very, very well and teach you to become a better player yourself. And sometimes people that are very, very good players they don't make good coaches because they can't communicate. Now, it turns out we have a lot of both inside our community at dfsarmy.com. So I would encourage you to consider jumping in if you're not already, and instead, use the coupon code CHOP, CHOP. Come talk to us about the different sports. Look back at my 5-minute video. This isn't going to be 5 minutes, but look back at my 5-minute video on picking NBA players, and you'll get very, very quick insight into when this is not your strength, what do you do? Okay, so let's move on. Let's jump in and recap Anthony's process really quickly because I just wrote it down. It's very, very simple. If you've been watching the process, you run Domination Station with lines 1, lines 2 checked only, and look at the output. Take the most common team as a decent indicator of chalk because, again, projections are leading that way, and most other optimizers around the industry are going to be on a similar grouping of players. Does that make sense? Projections are median projections, not predictions. And based on matchup and shot volume and minutes on the ice and all these things combined together, they show you who is likely to perform tonight. But it's an average projection. It's, say, 12. Well, the guys, hockey is such a volatile sport, the guy can come in anywhere from a 0 to a 45. But the problem is, more times than not, he's going to be in and around that 12. So what you watch is you watch that player's 12, and some nights it's a 12, some nights it's an 11, some nights it's a 14, some nights it's an 8, some nights it's a whatever. And what you're watching is when that runs a little bit above what it usually is, because then you're looking for a player who has a decent projection that is also in a spike position where he can actually produce above and beyond the average based on the matchup, and then you just hope it all pans out. So when you're taking the most common team as an indicator of chalk, you remove it, you run it again, and then you find your secondary team. And again, this doesn't mean that this is guaranteed to be the chalk. It just means it's a good indicator of where the popular plays are going to be. Head into the research station, sort by value, sift through the positions, and make a note of which players are in the top 3 to 5 of their positions. And then focus on which teams have the highest implied team totals in Vegas and best odds to win. These are formulating kind of like little buckets where your players are going to fall into, and you're going to be able to pick from quality plays. Now that you have a solid player base, both projected and likely popular, start looking for those with a high floor. What's the high floor? Shot and block volume. Goals and assists are volatile, man. They come and go. When your best player plays 82 games a year and scores maybe 50 goals and has a couple of hat tricks along the way, you're getting goals in bunches, much like home runs in baseball. It doesn't happen at 0.65 goals per night every damn night. It's 2 this night, nothing for a week, a goal 3 out of 4 games, and then nothing for a week, and you don't know. What you can predict is shot volume. Players that tend to get open, that tend to create their own shots and tend to throw the pucks at the net, typically tend to do that night in and night out. Unless you're like me and you counted on Jeff Skinner last night, who's been averaging about 7 shots a game and got you a frickin' 0 last night. Shit happens, man. I mean, it's hockey. It's volatile. It's crazy. That said, you want to study that shot volume. Assemble the best team you can using a combination of these numbers. So let's go play. What I will do is I'll jump into the domination station with you once. We'll kick over to FanDuel, hockey, or DraftKings, hockey, main slate. Once it loads up, we'll go down and we'll just run it. I'll show you how to set this up to where, because I had to clarify it, honestly, with Anthony as well. This is the line grouping you're talking about. You don't touch anything else. No randomization, no prioritized lineups, no bait, none of this, right? None of this. No unique players, none of this. Set it to run quite a few lineups. I don't know, 20, 50, 100, I don't know. And let it go. It'll probably tell me, actually I probably already did this, it'll tell me to change 2 settings in DraftKings or whatever. So go do that and then run it. See what it's going to tell you. It's going to be watching some of these players as it crunches numbers, okay? So in the meantime, we can also go into our research station and we can sort by value. I didn't leave everything turned on here. I kind of goof a little bit, but that said, I take DraftKings value and I sort by it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the filter off that I play with. I'm going to turn this filter off as well. Well, once it comes back on, sometimes it has to reload. Take those filters off. This is a very powerful tool, guys. Really powerful. But now I've sorted my player pool by descending order. Okay, by descending order of value. Right? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these value plays and I'm going to note who's tops on the slate. Carlson, Vrana, Mantha, Duclair, Pearson, Wood, Ovechkin, Moore. Okay, some of this may be true, some of this may be bullshit. But that's going to be up to you to determine. This is pointing out projection-wise on DraftKings who the higher valued plays on the slate are. Anything, over 2, 2.1, whatever, pretty good. Anything over about 1.8 is pretty good. That doesn't mean a 1.79 sucks. It just means anything right around 2 and above is pretty good. So who are the centers that we're looking at? Oh, Zacha, Matthews, and Imasov. Interesting. I guess I've got my defenseman. I got my defenseman turned off because I'm only looking at the centers. Suter, Kuznetsov, Pettersson, Millsat. Okay, so I'm looking at these guys right here, right? I mean, are these pretty standard, decent plays? Look, 15 points and a 2.07 on Austin Matthews in a high implied team total game. And I mean, probably ought to consider playing him in your cash games tonight. Along with a couple of these other guys, right? We can look at a couple of things here in a minute, but when we go to defense, same diff. Carlson, Hronek, there's a cheapie kind of up top. There's another cheapie here up top with Vatanen, right? These are guys I'd be looking at. They're scheduled to score, be in a position to score some points tonight, to produce. So somebody like a Vatanen, when I'm looking for value, right up in here with these guys, is maybe a pretty good defenseman or a utility type of player on DraftKings. Now, what am I going to do? Once I've written some of those down, I'm going to start looking for a floor. How am I going to find the floor? I'm going to come over here. I can either do shots on goals and block shots, average per game. I can come over to the season-long numbers, right? And I can add up their shots and add up their blocks if I want. I can come into the last 10 games and look at the shots on goal plus block shot floor for these guys. Look, 50 out of Thomas Chabot. Probably a pretty high floor. 52 out of Edler. Probably a pretty high floor, right? I mean, wouldn't you think? And they're scheduled to bring some value tonight because they're towards the top of this list. Probably solid plays. Maybe not the best of the best, but they're right up there on a shorter list of plays. What we've done is we've kind of cut some of the fluff down here from the bottom of the list, in theory. Come over and look at the last 5 games. Again, you can see the shot on block goal, floor of Edler and Chabot and Erik Karlsson. Is this No, Morgan Riley is pretty strong. Karlsson's pretty strong. Even Aronik at 20 is pretty good for the price that you're paying for the guy. Vatanen as well, 16 for what, 3,600. It's not terrible. Shows you that Vatanen's averaging 7.4 points per game, which at a price point of about 3.6 is about 2.0. 2 times value, 2 times his salary in terms of points per thousand, whatever. Come over here to the consistency ratings. Since we're talking about DraftKings, you can look at the last 20 games. That goes back into last year. Last 10 games, getting close to this being all this year only. Last 5 games is this year only. Look at how consistent John Karlsson is. 60% of the time out of the last 5 games, he's been over 20 points. 100% of the time, he's gotten at least 10. That's a high floor, man. That's a high floor. The end of the last 5 games is pretty much matchup independent. Just the dude's producing. 60%, pretty damn good out of Edler. 80%, pretty good out of, who's that? Is that Karlsson or just Chabot? 80% out of Chabot, 60% out of Karlsson, 60% of the time over 15 for these guys. If you want, hell, sort by descending and shift them up that way. And now I'm looking at the most consistent guys on the floor. I could scroll back over this way if I wanted to and look at the cheaper guys in their salaries and what's their value tonight. See, like 1.6, maybe not for Chabot. But Karlsson stays right at the top. Up here kind of towards the top in a consistency rating is Edler again, right? So, make up your mind, $6,000 for Edler. Maybe that's somebody that you're considering. Karlsson, maybe you're not going to be able to fit them both probably. You're going to have to do this through both of the positions. If I leave it at center, we'll see if that's still sorted by, it's still sorted by value. So, Zaka, Matthews, Anemasov, whatever. If I come back over here to the consistency rating and jam that out by the 15, if I go by descending again, who's consistently hitting 15 points? That doesn't matter as much on the cheap guys as it does on the pricey guys, but 80% of the time, Thomas Hertl's doing it. 60% of the time, he's over 20% in the last 5 games. 4 out of the last 5 games, he's gotten you 15 points or more. 40% for these guys. So who's the more consistent one right now? It's Hertl. Still want to see Matthews up in here. Matthews, pretty close. But for 5,700, Hertl's probably a value, considering he's averaging 15 damn points a game. Right? They're in a pretty good spot tonight. Toronto doesn't like to play defense. They're practically allergic to it. So you're taking a pretty good gamble. You're still taking a gamble, but you're taking a pretty good gamble on people like Hertl, Timo Meier, Brent Burns, whatever, right? Let's go back to the domination station and see who it spit out. A lot of Karlsson, a lot of Samsonov in goal. Probably your chalk goalie tonight. Wayne Simmons, deep value, 3,600 or whatever on the top line and first or second power play in Jersey. I'm looking here, Washington. 5 Washington players on the top page, including the goalie. New Jersey, 1, 2. There's 3 San Jose guys. Washington. Where'd the Toronto guys go? There's 1 Toronto guy. Okay, Toronto's maybe a little bit overpriced. It can't fit everybody in around him. It's taking better value from somewhere else as opposed to going into Toronto. Well, I know Toronto's the high ITT on the slate for the most part, so we probably ought to be focused on some Toronto. It's just going to be a little pricey. You better find some value outside of that. You may not want to pay all the way up for big value. You may want to take your exposure through Austin Matthews, through Morgan Riley, through what's his name, Johnson or Marner or even Nylander, something like that on a power play or on his even strength line. Something that if he has a good night, somebody probably fed him the puck. Or if your guy has a good night, I mean Matthews probably was feeding him the puck tonight. But you're getting your exposure to Matthews for cheaper. You can run something like the defenseman and his wing and get a little bit cheaper exposure to him that way. This works really, really well with like a cheaper guy that's up playing with like a Sidney Crosby or somebody like that. It's the same situation. So if I'm looking here, I see San Jose, I see Washington's probably the most popular tonight. So I can go back here, I can unclick Washington, and I can run it again. And it should be San Jose that pops up next. Okay, so you're formulating your player pool already. We know that Washington's liable to be pretty chalky. I would imagine Toronto is. If I come really quick back to the research station, go to today's games, those probably are not updated. But Toronto at a 3.7 and a 165 favorite, right? 2.9, 2.6. Not a lot of love in this game. Scroll down here. Not a lot of love in this game. More so on the Islanders side if you wanted to play. The Islanders, I wouldn't be heavy on Ottawa. They're probably more of a GPP play. Buffalo, 3.3. Pretty close. Detroit's pretty much giving it up right now. Washington 3.0, Vancouver 3.0, potential shootout to close out the night, right? These are things we're looking at. Another thing that you can look at for shot volume, shots on goal and block shots, add them in your head. 12 plus 4 is 16 by my math, 30 plus 1 is 31. 52 and 16 on that top line in Washington is what? 68 shots on goal and blocked shots? That's a lot of damned activity when the average around the league is pretty much in the 30s. 8 and 9, decent production. I would call this 68 and 17. 8 and 9 goals together, 17 points. 68 shots on goal and block shots. So 68-17 is what I'd call this if I was just spouting off numbers for the line. And then I'd look down here at the second line and compare it, right? So 23 and 11 is 34 and 7. So 68 and 17 versus 34 and 7. Down here to the third line. 42. It's outproducing the second line. 7 goals with more shot volume here. I'd be into the shot volume, right? That's what we said. Study the shot volume. You can do that over on the skaters tab as well, where when you've sorted by the value or the consistency, you can sort by value again. And then we can scroll back over, and we're still looking at just the centers right now. You can do this with all positions. You can do it position by position, whatever. Last 5 games, shots on goal, blocked shots. Let's sort by that. Let's see how many of these guys are bringing value. Eichel's way up at the top, 24. Horvat's up at the top, 21. Matthews has been up there all day. These guys are producing right now. Okay, maybe Eichel's somebody that you consider tonight. Scroll back over this way. 1.6 in the value metric. 2.07. I mean, Matthews is probably one of your guys for cash games tonight. You can consider a short list of others. But do you see what I'm doing? Do you see how I'm kind of stepping through this right here and looking for shots and block volume as well as trying to stay in the games and formulate kind of a core of players? I might be looking at a Samsonov, an Austin Matthews. I know for me, I like guys, right now like Brock Nelson's producing in New York. I know that Jacob Vrana in Washington's producing. Carlson, if I could fit him in, would be great. Alex Edler would be great if I could fit him in. I don't know how much priority I'm going to put on those guys over like an Austin Matthews who has the upside of a beast. I might be looking for some value play. I mean, Ovechkin probably in play. I'm just looking at these guys and just wondering which ones have the higher floors. That's your shot on goal and your block shots. And then which ones are in a position to produce. That's your implied team totals and your Vegas odds. Maybe a little bit of matchup like, shots allowed or DVP or type stuff like that. And if you're ever looking for DVP, it's back here on the main page right here. We've got season-long DVP formulating for you. Just things like that. But I would go through here. I would look at who's producing and where over the last 5 games, what lines are producing typically. I would try to take, like if I'm focused on Washington tonight, I would try and take a line 1 guy. Maybe it's Backstrom. Maybe it's Carlson. Pay up for Carlson, maybe take a Backstrom, and you've got your exposure to Ovechkin. Or come down here to the third line that's cheaper and grab a Vrana or an Eller. If I took Carlson and Vrana, if I consult Daily Faceoff really quickly here, it's another website that we use an awful lot. Let's see if Vrana's on that power play too. Because Ovechkin's on both. Don't let this shit lie to you. Don't let this shit lie to you. Ovechkin stays out and double shifts that power play all the time. So Eller, Vrana, these guys have access to Ovechkin. Okay? So if I've got Carlson and Vrana, essentially I've got a defenseman that rotates through everybody, and then I've got the third line, which is producing better than the second line right now. And I've got exposure to Ovechkin without actually taking his salary and paying his salary. It's another way to do it. If you go into the domination station again and see who that second team is now that Washington's removed, Toronto, just the one Toronto, Detroit, two Detroit guys, Jersey, three Jersey guys, San Jose, Vancouver. So kind of a smattering. So by this method, the chalk is indicated to be in Washington tonight. I think it's going to be in Toronto. So having a combination, getting exposure to both those offenses, probably a good plan. If you're looking again at your implied team totals, where were we? Research station. I mean, Washington, Vancouver, probably be a good idea to be in Washington. Might not be a bad idea to be in Buffalo. You know, who would you take from Buffalo? Well, you come back to the research station, go to the skaters tab. Well, actually, you just look at this tab right now. Look at the last 5 games. Let's look at which lines are doing the damage. 36 and 10 is 46, 46 and 9 versus 42 and 7 versus 25 and 4. This is a big no. And down here, 27 and 9. They're producing goals, but their shot volume's low. So I'd be up here in the top 2 lines somewhere. 46, 42, something like this. Be looking at maybe I can get an Eichel and a Skinner. Right? They both correlate on the power play. They're going to be expensive to do that. You have to be really sold on Buffalo. I think Washington and Toronto are being indicated in better spots. But that'd be one way to do it if you wanted to pay up for some people. If not, you grab yourself, like Eichel would probably be pretty important. 24 shots on goal and block shots, 5 goals and assists, right? Come down here. Who else runs that kind of volume that's not a defenseman? 23, no blocks, but 23 shots. So this is still 24. So you got similar floors theoretically. 3 points versus 5. Eichel's more valuable than Skinner. So if I had to pick one, that's the one I'd pick. And so who am I going to correlate with Eichel? Either Olofsson or Reinert. Well, they've both got 2 goals and assists, 11 and 11, so they're the same. So the cheaper one. That's how I would probably do that. Maybe Olofsson in the better matchup. And then I would look down here at Skinner, who correlates up there on the power play one, and Skinner's going to be too expensive to do that with. Maybe a Dalen. 15 and 2, probably not at his price. I would want to see better than 15 shots on goal block shots and 2 assists. I'd want to see something a little bit better than that. So I may run Eichel naked, and that'd be my only exposure to this offense. Maybe an Eichel Olofsson. That's about it. Come back up because San Jose was in another good spot we saw. If I wanted to study San Jose a little bit, and then I'll let you go. So I come down here, and I'm looking for what's this? 28? That's not a lot of shot volume. 12 is pretty strong. 10 assists and 2 goals. But this 28 is not very good. 34. So the second line's out producing, at least out flooring the other line. Kane's propping that up. But Hurdle's all right with 13 and 9 points. He's hot. 7 points. In 21 shots for Evander Kane. It's just all I'm doing. Carlson, 17 shots on goal, block shots, 6 points. Look down here at the third line, 31, fourth line, 22. It's crap. You're on the top 2 lines, probably on the second line for a little bit more consistency in producing right now. So you'd look at the second line, and who would you be taking? Not that Timo Meyer's a bad play up here for pretty cheap. Just not a lot going on around him. Couture and Marleau are getting some assists. Timo's getting some goals. And these are probably, some of these are on the power play too, because they're setting up Kane, who's just hot as balls right now. So I would definitely, if I take Thomas Hertl, I've got exposure to Evander Kane. But it's going to be very hard to run Austin Matthews, Jack Eichel, and Thomas Hertl in the same lineups tonight. There's my utility spot gone right there. Typically, cash games, your higher floor has a third defenseman sitting in that spot because they're a little bit more, productive for the price. Anyway, 25 minutes. Sorry, it's going on a little bit long, but this is just a hockey breakdown, just showing you the tools and showing you the kind of expertise that you have access to here at DFS Army and where to run. You've got the other experts in the other sports if you don't know where to run to. And you jump into the coaching forums and you ask us questions, and we'll teach you what we look for, and we'll teach you how to look for it, and we'll show you the tools and how to use them through these tutorials and these videos. It's essentially the largest part of what we do. And that's why we have Army hats all over the leaderboards. That's why we have players that come in as complete noobs and come out becoming, able to compete with the pros on any level, in any sport, any night, any slate, any buy-in level. Because we take the time to teach them. We take the time to show them what to do and how to do it. If that appeals to you, like and subscribe to the video. Come inside dfsarmy.com. Use the coupon code CHOP, CHOP. Trigger that 20% off discount. Get in here and get winning. NFL's coming. NBA's hot tonight. Even MLB and soccer and tennis. We had a $2,000 winner in tennis yesterday. I mean, it's just happening everywhere at DFS Army. You almost can't afford not to be part of the community. So why don't you come on inside and give us a shot. We'll talk to you soon. Chop it on, and I'm out of here.